Hola, buenos días. Muchas gracias, mi amigo Andres. I could give the rest of my talk in Spanish, but I don't speak Spanish, so I hope you will forgive me for speaking the rest of the time in English. It's incredible, the community that we all are here. And this is an essentially human community. What are we doing here? We're learning, we're exploring the essence of what it means to be a human. These ballet dancers who just performed were absolutely incredible. And I know I was backstage watching them, you were all seeing it. There was something that stirred inside of us when we see that dance, when we see that incredible movement. And it connects with something that's very, very deep within us. And as we talk about and explore this unbelievable, technologically driven journey in front of us that is going to take us to new worlds and new understandings of ourselves, we need to remember that the essence of who we are is our humanity. It's our community, it's our ideas, it's our art. But where we are going is so fundamentally different in many ways from where we've come. And the speed of how long it's going to take there is going to be accelerating. Right now, we have more people alive who are literate and educated than at any other time in human history by far. And they're all connected. We are all connected. And what does that mean? It's kind of abstract. But thousands of years ago, there were parts of the world that came up with a recipe for copper or bronze, thousands of years before other civilizations. And those civilizations that had the first step, they had thousands of years to develop all the other technologies that came from that first step. Today, what happens if somebody comes up with the equivalent of discovering the recipe for copper or bronze? What do? You send an email, you write a paper, you share it. And that means that everybody, billions of us around the world, nobody has to solve a problem that's already been solved by somebody. And so every day, this incredible and growing number of people, of humans, of imagination, are being unleashed at the world. When we hear about technology, we talk about transistors getting faster, and all of those things are true. But what we are seeing is the unleashing of unlimited human potential. And that's why we're on this exponential curve of change. And we talk about different technologies like nanotech and biotech and AI and robotics. And it's useful to speak that way, but what we're really seeing is a superconvergence of all of those technologies, because all of the technologies are inspiring each other. And we are racing forward into this future that is accelerating. What that means is our understanding of the rate of change looking forward is much faster than looking backward. In other words, if you are benchmarking the rate of change by thinking historically, you are thinking too conservatively. Because the limit of where we are going is the limit of our individual and collective human imagination. I also write science fiction novels, and I will tell you that the boundary where science ends and science fiction begins is blurry, because these crazy things that we can imagine are in many ways becoming true and becoming real. And there is nowhere where this story is being told more than in the world of biotechnology and genetics. When Watson and Crick identified the double helix structure of DNA in the 1950s, what they were doing is identifying the book of life is organized into the double helix. And with the culmination of the Human Genome Project in 2003, what we saw was the book of human life could be read with the A's and C's and T's and G's of the genetic code. And now we are at the beginning of the era of human genetic engineering. You may have heard of gene editing tools like CRISPR. And this means we are developing the tools to write the code of life. When we think about a technology that's readable and writable and hackable, We think about our phones, our computers, our televisions. We think about information technology. But the core message of this moment is that our biology is a form of information technology. And it's readable, and it's writable, and it's hackable by us. We're just one little species of monkeys that came down from the trees and reached up to look over the grass. And now this one little species all of a sudden has the power to recreate all of life on Earth, including our own. For millennia, we've imagined these gods that had these powers to do exactly the things that we can do, to recreate life, to build life from scratch, to extend lifespan. That's what our gods do. But quoting Stuart Brand, we now are as gods. And the question for us is, will we have the wisdom to use these powers wisely? And that's the question for all of us. This technology is coming, whatever anybody in this room does. But everybody in this room is going to be and must be part of the process for determining how these technologies can best be used to help us rather than harm us. And this is all big and abstract, but let me make it very concrete for you how these technologies are already changing your lives and will change your life. The first is in healthcare. We now live in a world of generalized medicine based on population averages. When you go to the doctor, your doctor treats you based on your being a human. If you have a cancer, they say, well, we'll try you on this drug. This drug works for a lot of people. It may work on you, and you find out by taking the drug. In our new world of personalized or precision medicine, your doctor knows a lot about your own biology and is able to say, this drug works with a person who has a biology like yours. So how does your doctor get that information? Well, they certainly need your personal history, your family history, information from your sensors. But the most important piece of information is your genetic information. And that's why, within the coming decade, we're going to have many billions of humans who will have their whole genomes sequenced. For most people, it's going to happen immediately after birth at the hospital, just like now you get a heel prick blood test. And all of that genetic information is going to go into massive databases all around the world. But if we sequenced everyone on Earth, which we will, you still wouldn't be able to do anything with that information because it's not just genetic information. Genetic information on its own is out of context. What you need to do is compare the genetic information with information called phenotypic information about how those genes are expressed. And how are genes expressed? It means just the story of your life, not just your health records, but your life records. And when we pull those two databases together, we are going to be able to crack the code not just of complex genetics, but of complex systems biology. And that is very quickly going to shift us from our world of precision or personalized medicine to predictive medicine, healthcare, health, and life. What does that mean? How will that show up? Well, it means right now you go to the doctor because you have a symptom. But in this future, which is now, you're going to be taking your newborn child home from the hospital. And the doctor is going to say, just want to let you know that your son has a 50% greater than average chance of developing early onset Alzheimer's or type 2 diabetes. Or your daughter has a 70% greater than average chance of developing breast cancer. Right now, you'll say, wait a second, my kid was born 6 hours ago. Why are you telling me this? But you're going to want this information because if your daughter has a greater risk of breast cancer, won't you want her to be tested when she's 20, not when she's 40, which is the current protocol? If your son has type 2, has a predilection for type 2 diabetes, won't you want him to start having habits of exercise and healthy eating in youth that will protect him? We're going to want that. We're going to demand it. But that's not the only information we're going to get. This same doctor will be able to tell you, just want to let you know, your doctor has a 50% greater than average chance of being fantastic at abstract math, or sprinting, or having a high genetic component of IQ, or having an outgoing personality, anything that has a genetic foundation, we will not be able to predict absolutely, but we will be able to apply mathematical averages, probabilistic guesses about how the story will play out. And how is that going to make us think differently about parenting, about identity, about what it means to be a human being? And the killer application of these technologies is going to be in our reproduction. And we are going to change not just the way we make babies, but the nature of the babies we make. And we're going to shift to taking conception outside of the human body. Right now, most conception happens through sex. But not all conception happens through sex, because about 2% of babies in the United States, 5% in Japan, 10% in Norway and Denmark are born through in vitro fertilization. The eggs are extracted from the mother, fertilized with the father's sperm, grown for a few days in a lab, and then reimplanted in the mother. But there's also a procedure called pre-implantation genetic testing. And what that means is you grow this pre-implanted embryo in the lab for about 5 days. Or let's say you have 10 eggs that have been extracted from the mother and fertilized. You grow them all for 5 days. At day 5, extract a few cells from each, sequence them because the cost of genome sequencing is trending toward basically zero, down from $1 billion in 2003. And then today, you have all of this information, and people are using it when selecting which of their embryos to implant. And in most cases, they're doing it because they don't want to implant embryos that carry deadly genetic disorders or chromosomal abnormalities. But we're going to have all of this genetic information that I've described available to us when making the decision about which of these 10 or 15 embryos to implant. Are you going to want to know which child is going to potentially have a deadly genetic disease? Probably. Will it be relevant to you to know which of those embryos has the greatest chance of living a long and healthy life? It may. And then what are your values? Do you value high IQ? Is that something that's important to you? Will you select that? Or personality style? And then we have this whole new set of technologies of genome editing. And the first CRISPR babies were already born in China last year. We are already editing the genomes of pre-implanted human embryos. And all of this is racing forward in this context of us. We are different within our societies, between our societies. We compete with each other to get our kids into the best schools, to give our kids the best chance of living. Between our countries, the United States and China are right now, in many ways, in a technological and innovation arms race that is going to define the 21st century. Are genetics and biotechnology going to be part of that competition? Absolutely, yes. It's already happening. It's part of all of the Chinese plans for becoming the world's leading technological nation by 2050. And all of this exists not in some abstract world, but in the world of our humanity, where the technology is happening, but the question for us is what values will guide its application. Because we don't want to live in a world where there are genetic haves and have-nots. As H.G. Wells predicted, this could be laying the foundation for levels of inequality that we haven't seen in a very long time. Or maybe we have. Maybe we have unbelievable levels of equality today, and the difference between the world's most advantaged and the most disadvantaged people today is as great or greater than the difference between these genetically enhanced people of the future and non-genetically enhanced people. So if we care about genetic equality in the future, let's make sure we know who we are today. Or diversity. Diversity isn't something that makes our communities more interesting, but diversity is the sole survival strategy of our species. It's what random mutation and natural selection are based on. And If all parents start selecting the same things for their kids, we could inadvertently limit our diversity. And all of this then circles back to the importance of everyone in this room, because our governments are not focusing on this. This technology is coming at us so fast that our governments are unprepared, our representatives don't even understand what's coming. And if we want to live in a world where our most cherished values guide the application of our most powerful technologies, everybody needs to be part of that fight. We need to be educated, we need to be engaging the people around us, and we need to be demanding that our governments focus on these issues. I'm part, as Andres mentioned, of the World Health Organization International Advisory Committee on Human Genome Editing, and we're trying to think at least about how to regulate these unbelievably powerful technologies. But we can't allow even well-intentioned experts to make decisions that are going to fundamentally change all of life on Earth, including our own. So the question for all of you and all of us is, are you ready for the genetics revolution? And if you are not, let this moment be the charge when you change that, so that we can work together to build the kind of future that we would all like to live in. Thank you.